Welcome back. So the Near North District School Board it's massive. It goes from MacTier to North Bay. How many schools?
To Mattawa.
To Mattawa.
It's 3 hours from MacTier to Mattawa. Wow. I know, I've driven it.
Some people in Parry Sound sometimes feel disconnected. I've heard people say they feel like they can't do anything. They can't say anything that will make a difference. It's particularly become an issue after this last election when the West Parry Sound District, because of redrawn election zones, lost a representative They lost Larry Olds, who was up in the Point of Barrel area, and now there's a Nipissing representative who's...
Well, you have Colleen Goupil is an excellent trustee. She will look after these problems. If people have problems and they get a hold of her, she will come over here. I think she's one of our most dedicated trustees. She knows her stuff, she researches, and she will defend whatever thing they hold dear to their heart. So I think people should give her a chance.
Okay.
We had to redistribute because of the fact, well, let me get back to this board, because I don't know what they were thinking when they made these boards. In my career at East Parry Sound, if they were telling me you're going to make a bigger board, which I don't know what the advantage is that.
You're talking about the province's decision?
Yes, I don't know what they would be thinking, but it would have seemed to me they would have put Parry Sound District and Muskoka together.
Right.
Why they stuck us in with, North Bay, and Muskoka stuck in with even a worse configuration, I don't know what they were thinking. It seems to me they went out of their way to make sure all the rural areas were attached to a fairly large urban area.
So within that board, why were the lawns redrawn again this past
year?
Well,
I don't even know who made up the boundary lines, but I'll give you here's the problem. North Bay has the majority of the population, and they had 3 reps from the Bay Area. They thought that, and the figures, and we went through these figures, and believe me, I'm not from North Bay.
You're from a rural area.
Yeah, I come from, they're as suspicious of North Bay as you are, and especially when they look at the health unit and everything's going to North Bay. Yeah. And they're really upset with that. So, but when you looked at it, it made sense that they should at least get some partial representation there. And at the time, Sturgeon Falls was attached to Trout Creek and Powassan across the lake.
Yeah.
Now, who would make one up like that? There's a cultural difference.
But coming back to Parry Sound, you see, Colleen is a good trustee, and will work for schools down here. So, do you think there's any reason for concern among parents and other educators and people in the community down here?
I'm not saying you should be paranoid. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you have some needs, she will fulfill them as far as bringing your message to the board. Mm-hmm. Any trustee can help any. I am quite willing to come over and talk to people. Mm-hmm. They can talk to me. That's not a problem. One of the problems they might have is a long distance to my home phone. But if they really need to get me, and it's a question of not being able to afford things, they can phone me collect.
You were down here for a municipal meeting.
Yes, I come over quite frequently.
Archipelago Township meeting.
Yeah.
What? And I think they expressed some.
Yes,
they
wondered why the archipelago was cut in half. Well, when we were looking at the map, I didn't even know what the archipelago was. We asked the trustees from here, and they said, well, they're islands, but they didn't give us a clear definition of where it was. So
I guess that's an example of where the concern comes from, that there are people in the north who make the vast majority of the board who, whether you come and visit the school or answer a phone call, you're still not familiar with the area.
You're right. And that's unfortunately a true thing that's going to happen with any configuration we make. The trustees here have to know what's going on there, because otherwise, how are you going to gauge the seriousness of their claims? Mm-hmm. Any trustee who just sits in a little hole in the ground here and say, I represent Parry Sound, I don't have to know what's out where my area or the other. They will be bowled over by not knowing what's going on, and they need to know that.
Right.
And ideally, all the trustees should be as interested in every area. That's what we sell to them. Do they buy it? And some do. We have a couple good trustees up in the Bay who are quite concerned about, they're baffled by the size of the board. Let me make that clear to you. That is a huge board. But I think they're quite sympathetic to the rural areas and Parry Sound. And I've been trying through the Student Senate, for instance, to get the high school here linked in with the other high schools. We want all the high schools to feel they're part of one big group. Mm-hmm. And even that, you look at that, they don't play their sports with North Bay. They don't, it's a really difficult thing, but we're not going to quit trying. Right. I want to see Parry Sound feel at home on the board. It's a big thing. Can we do it? I would hope, but I don't know.
If a parent wants to suggest something, make a difference, help with the situation, and they feel kind of lost, what should they do?
Well, I would contact the trustee, and if that's or me, I take a lot of calls from across the board, even from North Bay, and I would please advise them how they could get through the channels and where they go for their problems or their plans, or if they have some ideas. By all means, we're open to them. This is their schools. I don't feel I own the schools. I really dislike board members who think these are our schools and the people will be damned, we're going to do what we want with them. No, these schools are community schools. Taxpayers have paid for them over years, and they should have a say in how the thing unrolls. Another
issue when it comes to representation is whether the cities are making decisions that don't favor rural schools or small town schools. We have a number of northern boards, I believe including the North Board, that have voiced their opinions to the ministry saying the North has been shortchanged when it comes to handing out money. That's true.
Yes.
How so?
Well, yeah, if you look at this ideal school, it's a Toronto model. They would have all their schools in the 360 to 500 range, so their funding's fine. Our schools were never like that, so why are you telling us our schools are inferior? Which is basically what they said, and they're saying get rid of them. We're not going to fund them fully. Well, all the northern boards have small schools. Very few have big schools in elementary. Our high schools aren't too bad. They're almost within range. They're supposed to be about 900. Most of them are. So, but our small schools are vital parts. They've been there for years.
And there have also been grants that tried to make up some of the differences between the North and South. They're gone?
Well, yes. Some went to pay the teachers off. One of the things this ministry has done is brought peace with the teachers, which is a good thing, because we don't want to go back to the Harris fight to the death over all the issues, which was doing nobody any good. But they have put a lot of effort in appeasing the teachers, and some of our rural grant was sent up to pay for those salaries. But I must tell you, they have made principals and secretaries now funded. I just wish they'd take the next step. Fund full custodial and transportation.
So the province doesn't pay for that? Or what do
well,
you
they pay very little. I'll tell you, we get $5.71 per square foot to clean a school.
Okay.
And that sounds like a lot. You couldn't clean your house for that. But what happens is each student is assigned some square footage. So an elementary kid is only supposed to have so much square footage. And so if you can only generate with 60 kids, a very small amount of money, not enough to clean the schools. So that's why we get caretakers in or custodians in for only 2 hours a day, and then they go down to do another school. We don't have full-time custodial help in these small schools, or in many of our schools. Even in North Bay we don't. And it's putting a strain on the schools. And it's like the hospital issue. They're dirty because we've cut back too much.
Well, all this must be putting a strain on the board members too, because almost all of your decisions in the near future look like they're going to be pretty tough ones that some people won't be happy with. How do you deal with those phone calls, that pressure?
Well, I try to listen, and I try to figure out a way that's going to do the least damage, and that's all we can do.
Well, it's going to be a tough year. I appreciate your time, Mr. Bottomley.
Anytime.
And thank you all for watching In Question. If you have any questions, comments, or would like to suggest our next guest, please visit our forums at perrysound.com. Thank you.